Hi guys, welcome to Becoming Her, the podcast. We're on episode 4 and today's topic is faith that surpasses understanding. Faith is to totally put your trust or confidence in someone or something. Today we're going to be talking about faith. And this is something that we talk about very loosely. Everyone's like, oh, I have faith, I trust God. But we don't really understand the depth of why we should trust God, and we don't understand the importance of why God puts us in these seasons to trust Him. We're going to talk about the depth of faith. We're going to talk about the depth of faith that you can reach, and we talk about faith versus manifestation. It's going to be quite good. I'm excited. Bear with me today because I don't know if I've developed a cough or a cold, but I might cough during today's podcast. But by God's grace, we will be blessed because God's power works best in our weakness. So the Bible verses I'm going to be using, like I always tell you every single week, you can find them below. On Spotify, you can find them below if you check the description area, and then if you check on YouTube at the bottom on the caption, you can see the Bible verses if you want to go back and really get in touch with them. I always let you know every week. Sometimes I read a bit funny, so if you want to go back, then go back and read it. I do read from Amplified. You can try any version if it works for you. I used to read in NLT, but Amplified really breaks down the depth of the verse, so that is why I read from Amplified. So the first Bible verse we're going to be looking at is Matthew 17:20. He said to them, because of the littleness of your faith, that is, your lack of firmly relying on trust, for truly I say to you, if you have faith that is living like a grain of mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to the yonder place, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. That is Matthew 17:20. The second verse is 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we walk by faith, we regulate our lives and conduct ourselves by our conviction or belief, respecting man's relationship to God and divine things, with trust and holy fervor. Thus we walk, not by sight or appearance. 2 Corinthians 5:7. The last Bible verse is Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance, the confirmation, the title deed of the things we hope for, being the proof of things we do not see, the conviction of their reality. Faith perceiving as real fact what is not revealed yet to the senses. And that is Hebrews 11:1. Faith is equated to trust, the belief that something will happen despite visible evidence. Now, this is a very touch and go topic, because every time everyone's like, yeah, I know that you have to have faith in God for you to be saved. Salvation is like the first step of us building faith. It's us accepting and believing in Jesus. We ain't seen Jesus, we ain't seen God like with our two actual physical eyes, but we believe that we know that we serve a living God, and this is shown through the experiences we go through. There are many things that we go through in life that we know that it's only God that could have helped us overcome this particular situation. And believing in Christ helps us go on that journey to really accept the atonement for our sin, accept that God has forgiven us, accept that we are deserving of good things, and most importantly, to accept that we are created for a purpose, and we are on that journey. Even though the purpose that you were given or the promise that God has given you hasn't shown itself or come to fruition yet, the actual evidence of having faith in it is what brings it to pass. And we know this because Matthew 9:29 says, because of your faith, it will happen. So having faith in God is really a big thing. Now, many of us don't really consider the depth of faith. And I have my own little depiction, which I did last week, but I'm going to break it down for you this week. And the depth of faith I want to talk about is kind of the levels of faith from beginner to advanced. And I want to break it down for you according to the fruits of the Spirit as well. Because what people don't really see is the reason why we have to have faith. Because God can literally just say, ask for this thing, and then pop it up right there and then. But we don't really understand why God is making us go through the journey of building faith and building into different dimensions of faith and deeper into faith. So first of all, I want to talk about my little baby Christians. All of us baby Christians. I still call myself a baby Christian because I haven't really grounded my mind around some of the things that's happened in my life, but I'm still a baby Christian because I'm always very hopeful. But for our baby Christians, I like you to kind of think deep. Maybe if this kind of relates to you, or maybe it feels like you at the moment, and then as we go deeper and deeper, we will discover the depth of faith. So the first is I describe it as the net blindfold, and the reason why I call it a net blindfold, because if you look at like a net, maybe fish nets, if you have a pair, maybe just stretch it out and like look through, you can see through the holes, but you have like obstruction through maybe parts of fabric that are joined together. That's pretty much what net looks like, and it's basically a spoon-fed blessings phase. So I feel like that's the first phase where you finally, get saved and God begins to show himself in your life. But the way God does it is in the little prayers. God reminds you that I'm here. Hi, I'm here. Like a baby when they're looking for their parent, the parent's like, I'm here, and the parent comes after them. So you're kind of in that baby phase, God is really guiding you through, really holding your hand, and just I'm right here. And then you're trying to stand up, you're falling down, God is guiding you through it, but in baby form. You're being fed, spoon-fed blessings. So it's easier for your faith to grow and develop. And I feel like if you're in that stage right now, in that baby fit stage, and you're actually really seeing God's mercies and grace of your life, I would advise that you write it down. That's something I never did at the beginning of when, God came through for me. There's some blessings that they stay embedded in my mind from when I first got saved, but it's so embedded in my mind because of the experience was so supernatural. But for you that forget things, even the little ones, the little faith, write it down so that whenever you find yourself graduating into the depths of faith and you'll feel like your faith is shaky, you can go back and read it. The next phase, or I would say, of faith is mesh blindfold. So mesh is like you can kind of see through the mesh, but you can't see as much as you would through like a fishnet tight. Through a mesh tight, you can just about make out things, but you can't see so clearly. And I feel like this is the intermediate stage. This is where you have like mild troubles, mild blessings. This is where God begins to kind of show himself in your life, but then kind of hold your hand. So that stage where you started walking by yourself and your parent guides you, but then they let you go and stand behind and kind of watch you walk ahead. It's almost like riding a bicycle with like the training wheels on, and you're just riding and you turn around and your dad or your mom is not there and you're like, where's everyone? Pretty much that's the stage of the intermediary tree. And this stage is where things start getting a bit hectic. And I say hectic because you're so used to God giving you exactly what you want. You're so used to telling God, oh God, I really want this, and then God brings it to pass and in a timely manner. So you're already like anxious. But in the mesh stage, you're now looking like, okay, it's not as timely as it used to be. Like, where is God? Like, God used to give my blessings on time. Like, now I feel like I have to wait longer for it. This is the stage where God begins to start teaching you, training you, growing you, because how faith grows is by time, perseverance, experiences. That's how faith grows. And the last stage, which is the advanced stage, which is the stage that I feel like many Christians really get to, and they think, rah, is this what it is? And this is the stage that you need to be at if you're trying to pursue purpose. That's the truth. This is the stage that you will get to, that at one point in your life, your purpose will be all you have, because all you're holding on to is that purpose. It will get to that point where you're just at the advanced stage of faith and you're just propelling on and you've seen things, but all your entire life is a testimony of God's glory over your entire life, and you're just operating in faith, full blown. You wake up and sleep and eat and everything is faith that you're existing in. But this is the part where I say you're fully blindfolded. So you have like a very dark, pitch black blindfold. You can't see nothing. All you can do is hear. So the idea of faith is that you lose sense of the sight. So if you lose your sight, close your eyes and just imagine trying to process doing things with your eyes closed. That is pretty much what faith is. And you're trusting the sound that you're hearing. You're trusting God is leading you, guiding you, telling you. You're closing your eyes and you're saying to God that, God, I'm gonna close my eyes to the world and what I can physically see, so I can spiritually hear what you have to tell me. Now, why is the depth of faith important? Because the whole essence of us having faith is because God is trying to build the fruit of the Spirit in us. And we know there are 9 fruits of the Spirit. If you don't know, there are love, joy, goodness, patience, self-control, peace, gentleness, kindness, faithfulness. Now, these characters, many of us will be like, but I'm kind, but I'm this. Yeah, no, girl, you are not. Like, we are learning. That's the whole point of it. We are learning because these fruits of the Spirit are things that we should emulate in our lives 24s. Like, we are trying to be like God at this point. We're trying to be like Jesus, and we're supposed to show that to the world. But it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's so hard. Like, when people say, oh yeah, I think I'm really kind, I'm just like, man, it's hard to be kind. Let's be real. It's hard. It's hard to have self-control. We live in a world where everything is easy access and we have preview of everything, so it's hard to really ground yourself in self-control. But what we know is that God is in it with us, so we're hopeful and we continue and propel ourselves into that journey. Now, the fruits of the Spirit and how they affect the depth of your faith. The first stage is the beginner stage, like we spoke. It's the next stage where you can kind of see you're at that baby stage where God is holding your hand, you're trying to walk, you're trying to figure it out, and God is giving you blessings, helping you, supporting you, grinding next to you. By the way, God supports you all the way through, but this stage is like God is trying to really show himself to you, so that you begin to like have like a checklist of all the things God has done for you. Because when you start to climb the bigger mountains, when you look back, you're like, oh, I climbed that mountain and I never knew I could climb that 1 meter mountain, and here I am on a 5 meter. Wow, that is pretty much faith. So this stage, beginner stage, God is trying to build the specific fruits of the Spirit of love, joy, and goodness. This is where God shows you his love. This is through all your experiences. This is where God gives you joy. This is the part where God gives you goodness. Those are the 3 fruits of the Spirit that God is building in your beginner stage of faith. Love, joy, and goodness. This is the beginning point. At this point, what God is trying to show you is how easy it is to love, how important it is to love, and how detrimental to your journey love is. In this stage, God is trying to give you joy, not happiness. I need you to understand, not happiness, because we're like, oh God, I want to be happy, but God is trying to give you joy. Joy is that you feel from the well of your belly, that you feel joyful, rather than happiness that is a subjective thing that can remove and not be removed. Joy is something that, even though you might not necessarily look, happy to say the least, you're joyful, you're grateful. It aids gratefulness, I would say. And lastly, God is trying to teach you goodness, obviously how to be good. And the only way I can teach someone how to be good is if I'm good to them. And this is the beginner stage. These are the 3 fruits of the Spirit you learn in the beginner stage. Then we move on to the intermediary stage. This is the mesh stage. This is where God is taking you through trials and you've jumped from the hoop of baby stage. This is where, God begins to teach you love. The same things as before, love, joy, goodness, but then adds patience and self-control. Now, I always say this part is always tricky, because the blessings or the things that you anticipate that you're looking on to God for in faith they take time. God begins to now long out the time. God begins to now show you that, okay, I'm gonna hold you back from this to build your self-control. In this time, this is where we start getting frustrated, because we're so used to the God where we put coin inside. I read my Bible today and I found a £5 note in my pocket. Yay, 1 win for me. That is the part of us that is, we're expecting that's what we're going to always get. But with God, you're not a baby. You grow in maturity, in faith. And when you keep growing spiritually, God has to continue to train you. Now, in this intermediary stage, you learn love like you did previously. So God continues to still show you his love, joy, goodness. But this time you are building patience. So some of the blessings and some of the things that you're anticipating and holding on to God for in faith might take a bit longer. They might feel like it's a bit longer, but it probably is just right on time. But you just feel like it's longer because you're so used to God giving you exactly what you want at the time you want it. And then in this stage, you're building self-control. This is the part where you're now seeing that God did this for me previously. So if I can love God and behave myself to an extent, then maybe something gotta give. And I think this is the part where you get to really figure out what is right from what is wrong. This is the part where you really kind of ground yourself in, okay, I have to wait on this, I have to build patience, I have to control my appetite, fast, pray. So this is the part where you begin to really equip yourself. It's like, this is the part where, when you go for training, they'll first of all train you, give you baby training, and then they put you on probation, and then you now go back for another training again. This time they'll maybe give you extra things that you didn't know. This is the part where you get prepared for like small war. The beginning part, you're having little battles, small stone and war here, small battles, and then you get to the middle stage where it starts to get heavy. That boat starts to rock a bit, and you're like, is this is not what I signed up for, God. I didn't sign up for none of this. But the beauty of our God is that in that season, God shows us love, joy, goodness, teaches us patience and self-control. Now this is where you are fully blindfolded. This is like the advanced stage. This is the big boys, this is the big guns. This is the stage where like you'll be hearing people's real miracles and you'll be tearing up at that miracle. This is that part where someone will literally tell you that they've been looking unto God for like 3 years to cure their cancer, and God finally came through. But in that 3 years, every day, you don't know what they experienced, but they know the experience that they went through, and they're thinking, God cured my cancer. Every day I woke up with this illness, and one day I went for my appointment and they said it's gone. Wow. Those are the miracles that you will take with you when you go to your old age. You'll be like, there's nobody that can tell me that God is not real. Now, to go this stage, you are fully blindfolded. This is the stage where everything that you are seeing is not looking like what it's going to be. It's like, for example, when you say you want to build a house, but the house is literally just at the foundation, and all you can see is like mud, grass, and rocks and soil. You can't see no building, and then someone is telling you this big 20 million room building is going to be on this plot of land, and you're thinking, since when? How is it possible? This is the stage where you literally do the work and just go blindfolded. You obey and you're blindfolded. Your life will not reflect where you are currently going, because if you compare the two by sight, by what you're seeing, it will scare you. But if you go blindfolded and you trust the voice of God and God's promises, which he has consistently shown you in the past that I can be trusted, then you will continue on your walk in faith. The advanced stage is where you learn all 9 fruits of the Spirit. This is where you learn love, joy, goodness, patience, self-control. But this is the season and the stage where you will require peace. This is where you understand the importance of peace. Because we have hard seasons, and God might not necessarily let us, escape those hard seasons, because some of them we have to go through it. I don't know if you've ever heard that. God can, take you through a storm, and you might be saying, God, I don't want to be here. And God is like, you have to get out of the storm. So you have to go through the entire hard parts of the storm in order for you to get out safely. And this is the part where you pray for peace. This is the part where you're sitting there, you're like, God, everything is looking all kinds of weird in my life, all kinds of funny, but you've given me a promise, and I'm holding on to faith in that promise. But then at the same time, I'm desiring peace in this season. That's the part where you're just thinking to yourself, like, God, if I can only have your peace. And in that season, God is able to show you all these things through all the experiences you're going through. Like I said, this is the fully blindfolded stage, so you can't even tell. All you're going by is what you're hearing. All you're going by is by what you're hearing. Like, people are literally going to look at you and be like, sis, you said that God was going to give you this, and this, and I'm seeing you, and you are eating Indomie every day, and your life is not reflecting that rich babe that you're trying to be, or that big babe that you're trying to be, or whatever it is. And you have to really stand 10 toes down on what God has told you. Because the enemy will really try and lie to you on this journey and tell you that maybe you're on the wrong path. Or maybe that you are kind of overthinking it. Or maybe you should just fall off the wagon just a little bit, because God just understands, And it's easy for you to fall, but you need to understand that the importance of faith in this season is to build your character. Now, the next thing that God will build in this season out of the 9 fruits is your gentleness. Now, this gentleness is, I left it because when I started thinking about the idea of gentleness, I was thinking, like someone who's very gentle and calm and stuff. But what God actually is trying to build in this season is to show you that he's very gentle. He's not heavy-handed. He's not a heavy-handed God. He's a very gentle God. When you know that God is gentle, you know that all the storms that you're seeing in your life, God has created a gentle way through it. God has created a form of gentleness through it. And when God teaches you gentleness, he teaches you how to approach storms with gentility. It teaches you how to approach those storms in a very gentle way, in a very peaceful way, in a way where you're not becoming the storm yourself. The storm isn't turning you into your own personal storm. You are going through chaos in a very gentle manner. In the advanced stage, God also teaches you kindness. Now, I didn't put kindness at the beginning because everyone's always like, oh yeah, I'm kind. No, you're nice, not kind. There's a very big difference. Kindness is one of the hardest act of services to deliver, because many people think it's easy, but it's really not. Even me, I used to say I'm such a kind person, but no, I was just a nice person. There's a very big difference. Being kind is more like basically giving without expectation. That's kindness. It's like having to be nice to the worst of the worst of the worst. Imagine the person in your life that you're like, no. Like that person that if someone brings up their name and says, oh, can you help so and so, you'd be like, no. Imagine having to be kind to that particular person. Like having to really show kindness, having to be there for them, having to support them. Be very, very guarded about the level of support you give. Obviously, open your eyes to the vision of where God is taking you, that you don't extend yourself too far. But being able to be there for them and being able to guide them through a difficult season or whatever God has placed in your heart to do in that time, and being obedient towards it. It's hard to be kind. I found myself in situations sometimes where God will tell me, oh, can you extend kindness to this particular person just so that they can feel my presence? And you're thinking, but this person don't even like me, so why am I gonna do that? But what kindness does is that it's not about you. It's about showing God in your life. It has nothing to do with you. Niceness is what has to do with you. That's the part where you're I'm nice. But to be kind, it goes beyond you. Kindness shows God's light in your life. And lastly, the fruit of the Spirit that God built in the advanced stage, this is one of the biggest ones, and this is as a recourse of everything that you believe in faith coming to pass, is God shows you faithfulness. God is faithful in that season. In those seasons that you're going through, God remains faithful. God doesn't change or steer his lane. He doesn't say, oh, I see that you turned a corner and you did this and you misbehaved and you lied on Tuesday and Wednesday, therefore I'm gonna withhold you from. God ain't that kind of God. Okay, I need you to understand that God is faithful. Despite everything and anything, God is faithful. God is merciful. And those fruits of the Spirit is what we are expected to embody through faith. Now, I would say to you, to be honest, that it's really hard. It's hard. It sounds really nice when you say it. It sounds easy, but it's one of the hardest things to do. Because imagine being in a season where you've been promised something by God. Maybe God has promised you a child, but right now you've had like 6 different miscarriages, and you're thinking to yourself, God, you said I'm going to have a child. I keep having miscarriages. And in this season, you're now saying you're trying to build these characters and fruits and spirits in me. How do you expect me to show love when I'm having miscarriages? How do you expect me to be very joyful when I go to church and I see all the women pregnant? How do you expect me to be good to people when I feel like life is unkind to me? How do you expect me to be patient when I'm 35 and almost approaching 40 and I've been told half of my eggs are dying? How do you expect me to have self-control when I'm in a season where nothing around me feels controlled? How do you expect me to have peace when everybody around me is putting pressure on me? How do you expect me to be gentle when I don't feel like I'm being handled in a gentle way? How do you expect me to show kindness when my entire body is failing me and the world is showing me unkindness through words and unkindness and just heartless situations, and people around me are saying, oh, but look, she's had 6 miscarriages and she thinks I'm gonna have a baby. How do you expect me to remain in the act of faithfulness when I haven't even yet to see the evidence of you being faithful to me in this particular season? And this is how we wire our mind around our faith. and this is how we allow our faith to be killed. But if we look back at what the things God has done in our lives, if we look back at the times when God got us through a season that was hard and showed us love, if we look back and see where God has put joy in our hearts in a particular season, if we look back and see how God was good to us, how our patience persevered for us in a season where it looked like it wasn't going to happen previously, if we look back and we really inhabit who God is, we can fully understand how faithful God is and why it's important for us to be faithful to God. I think a lot of us are stuck in this new age spirituality, which is like a slot and win kind of thing, and it is faith and versus manifestation. That's the world we live in. We live in a world where faith versus manifestation is really a real thing. And I feel like everyone, everywhere you go to, they say, oh, if you can dream it, you can believe it, you can see it, it will happen. And everyone's like, yeah, because my Bible also says the same thing. No. Manifestation ejects God from the situation. And once you eject God from the situation, you are weak. You come at the situation from a human and a man standpoint. Faith versus manifestation is basically God versus man. That's what it is. I've been seeing all over the place manifestations folders, manifestation affirmations. I even bought like a really cool affirmation, I would say like a desk thing, and I was really excited to go through that manifestation stuff until I started seeing the universe wheel, and I was just like, the universe, can we just put God? Can we just address that this is God? Why are we trying to exempt God from what we need? We need God for this thing to come to pass. But we are being told that if we manifest it with our own human selves, it will come to pass. Not possible. Now, I want to break down the idea of what faith does in comparison to what manifestation does. And why I use manifestation is manifestation in this world is a derivative of having faith. If you have faith in something in this world without God, they say you're manifesting it. Eat grapes under the table at 12 midnight for you to find the love of your life in 2024. I saw it all over TikTok and I was thinking, girl, if that's not like new age spirituality and all this kind of pee, like, let's not exempt God from situations, because he says, while you are weak, in your weakness I am made strong. But if we are making God weak, then we are also remaining weak. We're not going to ever be made strong, because God's power is shown best in our weakness. In this season that's not making no sense, God can finally utilize me and let his glory be shown in my life, so that I can go out and tell people that, oh, you see that glow? That ain't me, that's God. But if I'm manifesting it, I become self-absorbed amongst other things. So the breakdown of it is that this is what faith does to us. Faith gives us the fruits of the Spirit. We get to inhabit those 9 fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, goodness, patience, self-control, peace, gentleness, kindness, and faithfulness. This is essentially what faith does. And it improves our character and it improves our life. Because at the end of the day, we're not stuck in this cycle of, oh, okay, I got exactly what I wanted, but what next? Because that's the journey that most people go on. I remember someone asking me the other day, oh, why do rich people kill themselves? If I had money, I wouldn't kill myself. No, because they don't have nothing to hold on to. They have fancy stuff, but that's all. That's literally it. But with faith, God builds you into the idea of what a life should be like. You have journeys, you have roller coasters, you have the highs, the lows, but most importantly, you have God. So even in the seasons when you feel lonely, God is right there. So in that time when you feel like, God, I just want to die, God is like, no, it's not your time. You have a purpose to fulfill. You're here on this journey with me. You're living beyond what is seen in this world. Whereas we look at man's version of faith, which is manifestation, and this brings about greed, insatiable wants and desires. And we know this because every single time you get something, you want another thing and another thing. Naturally, humans were made to demand, and once we are supplied that, we create another demand out of something. That's the world we live in. That's capitalism. That's everything we experience. But when you now let it enter the world of manifestation, you then begin to have an idea of self-glorification. You begin to think you're the reason why this thing happened. And you begin to tap into different realms of, I would say, negative, evil, spiritual things, because all you're doing is relying on yourself to achieve those things. Also, when you look at manifestation, you eject the essence of purpose. You eject the essence of wisdom out of everything, because life experiences and wisdom is what shows us that God is real, is what teaches us exactly what it means to be fulfilled out of life. Many people wake up day to day living life in a very butchered way. Wake up, go to work, come back, repeat. Same thing over and over and over again. There is no change to your pattern. And one day you wake up 40 and you're like, oh God, I've wasted my life. And then you see people at 40, 50 deciding at the last hour to divorce. At 40, 50 waking up and deciding, oh, I just want a tattoo today. I just want to do something. And I think it's not a bad thing to have experiences even in your old age, but what it is understanding that you're trying to get fulfillment out of life at every season will keep you grounded in your journey of faith. You're seeking fulfillment. That's why you stay right next to God. God, I want to feel fulfilled in my life. I want to achieve my purpose, and I believe that you have a purpose and a plan for me. The minute you ground yourself in that idea, your faith can actually grow despite what you're seeing. We know that faith is evidence of things hoped for. We hope for it. These are things that we hope for. We hope to be mothers. We hope to be wives. We hope to have this really lovely business and job one day. We hope to have 20 kids, a dog, and a really big mansion in Essex. We hope for these things. But with all the things that we are hoping for, we are also having to realize that we are trusting in an entity. It's either you trust self or you trust God, but you can't have the two mixed. We can't have any other God but God. But when you begin to hope in self, that's when you take God out of the equation and you start becoming very impatient, and you're like, oh God, it's not coming to pass. Okay, let me try and do it my own way. But when you see that, okay, in this season I'm in, maybe God is trying to grow my patience, so that's why things are taking a little bit longer. That's why they're not looking the way I want it to look right now. In those seasons, you know that backstage, God is doing everything while you are blindfolded. You don't know what's going on. You don't know if the curtains are going to come down. You don't know if there's a sack of sand coming your way. All you're just doing is basically playing your role and doing exactly what God has sent you to do, despite how it looks. Trust is the definition of the measure of relationship. If you don't trust something or someone, you are measuring your relationship. That is the measure of the relationship you have. If I don't trust you, then I don't have that much of a relationship with you. The more time I spend around someone, the more I begin to build trust with that person. So for example, when you start dating someone, the more time you spend on the phone with them, you start to see that your heart becomes warmer towards that person, and you start to feel things, you start to know things. And then when you start growing in stages of trust, then you can say, okay, yeah, this is where I see myself, and then you can progress. Trust defines the measure of what the relationship is. So if I have little trust in you, and I'm always suspecting you, I'm always going through your phone, I'm always feeling like you're up to no good, I don't really value the relationship that much, because in my mind it's like, I love you, but I don't trust you. I'm still thinking you're capable of. So this is the measure of the relationship. Now, if we don't have faith in God, then we don't value the relationship we have with God. We don't value the outcome of it. When I trust someone and I decide that I want to go on the journey with them, I value it. I value exactly where I find myself. When you begin to lose value, when you begin to lose trust and all these things, then only then you begin to say, okay, well, I don't really trust this guy, so it is what it is, you know. That is how we do it. But trust is the definition of the measure of the relationship. Think about it. How do I measure a relationship? Really and truly, like, how do I actually measure a relationship? By trust. The more you trust someone, the more vulnerable you get. The more you trust someone, the more open you are. That is how your relationship with God should be. The more I trust God, the more I put faith in God, the more I can be very vulnerable with God in areas in my life that I've blocked behind and hidden from God. For example, the areas in our lives that we say, okay, God, I trust you and I have faith in you, but then you're still trying to work it by yourself. You haven't fully exposed that side to your vulnerability with God, so you're kind of burying it. Just like keeping secrets in the relationship, like, oh, I have a child, but I'm not going to tell you yet because I feel like you're going to run. So I ain't telling you yet. It's the measure of trust. When you get to a place where you are like, yes, I feel grounded and I can trust this, then I can then expose. And this is the reason why I say there are depths to faith, because what God does in that depth of faith is that he builds that trust, that you can become vulnerable. He opens you up to, okay, now you can be extra vulnerable. You see, when something is taken away from you, you can be vulnerable. I use this example. Imagine a girl And for example, she's living in her own, zone area. She's on a date with a great guy, and over time things don't go well for her, but she doesn't open up to him about it, and she's going on a journey consistently. And then small by small, those walls begin to break around her, and she has to move back home. And he's having to pick her up back at home, and he's thinking, wait, you don't live here, da, 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 da. And she's explaining herself. The level of trust she's gotten to be able to open up that side of herself has grown over the course of like over a course of years or months, but it's built off her experiences with this person. I've experienced you, that I can trust you. You've shown me that I can be vulnerable with you, and you won't judge me for it, you won't butcher me for it. So because of that reason, I can then trust that I can give this to you, and I can share this pain I'm in with you. And that's what God wants from us. The overall point of faith is to give us understanding into the true nature of God. God knows who we are. God knows us. Now we need to learn who God is. And then, only then, can we truly love God. And that's just how it is with people too. How do you get to know someone? When you finally know them, you get to love them. That's how we have friends that become family, and we have experiences like that, because you get to know who those people are at the core, and they show you who they are, and you show them who they are, and it becomes a running relationship. And then, only then, can you say that, yes, I love God. And you don't love God because of the things that God gives you. You get to love God because of the experiences that you've had, that God has come through. And you get to love God at the parts where you begin to see that, wow, if I try to do this by myself, it just won't work. And I always wonder how people be doing this life thing without God, because it is hard. I can only imagine trying to do it without God. Woo, child, I'll be tired. Like, I'm even tired as it is. But it's a lot. And putting like your faith into God gives you the full depth. It's like you're kind of saying, God, I've taken everything I believe in, all these side hustles, side God, my job, everything that you're putting faith in. Because faith is not just you putting faith in like many things ain't even anything. Like putting faith in like your job, like oh, they're gonna pay me next week and I'm sure of it. They can sack you today. To be honest, they can actually decide like, okay, I don't come back and we're not going to pay you for whatever reason. Like, but you putting your faith in that job, that at the end of the month you will see something. That's you putting faith in it. You have faith in your employer. You have faith in your friends, that they'll be there for you in hard times. You have faith in all these worldly things. So why don't you put them down and then have faith in God? That's just how I see it, to be honest, because I feel like those things have given you experiences. For example, you work a job, you have from experience that they'll pay you on the 30th. So every month they pay on the 30th. The 1 month they skip not paying you on the 30th, we know how you finna move. We know what you're gonna do and who you're gonna become. And with God, it's more like a thing of, I don't want you to be codependent on that 30th. What I want you to know is me, my true nature. That's the whole essence of this. Whereas your employer is a very, corporate aspect of things. But building trust, it leads to love. It leads to that warmth that you feel, that that even though you're alone, you feel like God is still right by your side. And when you look at how a relationship is when you have family, friends, parents, you see that when a child grows up, the more the child grows into a journey, if they're in a healthy family, they develop love and they have great relationships. But it is all from a basis of experiences. And that's like when you sit around, people are able to talk about experiences they've had and memories and nostalgia, because that's what they hold on to. Because we humans were built that way. We're built to hold on to the nostalgia of things. And God is trying to give us things to hold on to, that I experienced this with you. I took you through this. We did this together. We did that together. And the closer you are to God, the easier this world gets, because your eyes become close to what we're seeing. It's like when they say a parent knows more than you know. Some women get into relationships and their mom is like, I don't trust this guy. And you're like, she don't give me a valid reason why. And you continue on and then you get heartbroken and you're like, oh, mom was right. But not because she's like an all-seeing God or anything. No, it's just because of the fact that she's had experiences that you probably haven't yet to experience. She's probably had something that's shown her ahead of things, how things could go. She can perceive things. And as a mother, her job is to stand in place and save you and help you in a respectful way. And if you have faith and trust and believe in your family, parents and mom, you believe that they wouldn't harm you the same way you believe God wouldn't harm you. So why not build faith in God? because God is our Heavenly Father, and He wants better for us than our earthly parents even do, because they can only see, their vision is equally as limited as ours. They only see the first and the second dimension of life. They only see past and present, but God has seen the future, so He's already seen it that this thing is not good. But when you continue to put your faith in God for that thing that you desire, God will either take away the desire if it's not for you, or God will continue to help you fuel the passion to achieve that which you need to. Building faith. I think for me, faith is something that it comes through knowledge of someone. It's just like everything else. When you have knowledge of it, you experience it, you then begin to know exactly how to maneuver. The more you expose yourself to a particular person, you start to build trust. If you notice, there's some people that are like, I can't even trust that girl, I don't like her. And the more time you spend with her, the more time you spend around her, the more you begin to say, oh, this person's actually not that bad. Then you begin to somehow have little trust. Many of us operate in trust issues anyway, because this world has already made us scared and scarred. So we all have trust issues to an extent, but we still have some level of trust. We have trust in the government system, which I don't know why, but we do. We have trust in our friends, and we have trust in even material things. For example, we order clothes at the last hour. We trust Pretty Little Thing way too much, and they need to fix up that royalty thing, because I trust them at the last hour. I ordered like an hour before their delivery cut off, and then the next day when they don't come, I get disappointed. Too much trust. Now, from I would say from a psychological standpoint, I want to look at the ABC model of attitudes. And we know attitudes affect the way we live and the choices that we make. And I think that with attitudes, from the ABC model standpoint, we have to consider that an attitude that you develop is what progresses or takes you to a certain place. So when we look at attitudes in the ABC model, we look at A is affective, B is behavioral, and C is cognitive. We know that affective is emotional reaction. It triggers the emotional reaction in you. And we know B is behavioral. So behavioral, your influences on behavior. This is what influences the behavior that you put up, basically. And your cognitive is your thoughts and your belief. All of these three steps basically develop the attitude that you would, or approach that you have towards something. So when we look at faith, and in terms of the ABC model, we look at faith, and we think, for affective, we're looking at the emotional reaction, what faith does. Faith helps us feel safe, it helps us have hope, and it gives us a reason to live. So that's the affective, the emotional side of things. We know that from a behavioral standpoint, it influences the things that we do. So faith will encourage us to remain prayerful, so therefore we'll remain close to God, reading our Bible, building a relationship with God, even going to church, building a relationship with fellow saints, remaining in the place of solemnness and holiness, listening to sermons. It basically encourages that side of us, and this is fueled by the feeling of feeling safe and hopeful from having faith. And then the C part is the thoughts and beliefs. This is the part of us that now starts to think a certain way and starts to believe in what we believe in. And with this, it starts to grow our faith and believing in Jesus and believing in God, and really understanding that all things can be possible through God. I can do all things through Christ. This is literally the idea. So when we look at the system and we look at the model, is the affective. So our emotional side is triggered through faith. That side of us that feels safe, when we have faith in God, we feel safe, we feel hopeful. We're hoping for things to come. We're looking at it and saying, yes, God, I feel hopeful. But every time you read your Bible when you're having like a depressive day, or you feel really depressed, have you ever read the Bible and thought to yourself, wow, I'm feeling more hopeful than I did when I started out? That is the affective part of you that has been triggered. Then the part of behavioral, when you start reading your Bible in the day, you eventually start to want to operate your day in a better behavior, trying to do better things to God, maybe showing acts of kindness in the day. Maybe you meet someone that's homeless on the road and you think, oh, I have £5 in my pocket, I'll just give it to them. This stems from obviously the emotional feeling of feeling safe and hopeful. And lastly, this then leads you into having thoughts and beliefs, believing that God exists, believing that Christ died for us, believing that you were called for a purpose, believing that you have faith in God and all things will come to pass. And this is the scientific standpoint of things. But when I look deeper into other standpoints, I look at, for example, I'm going a bit technical. So for those of you that are probably like, wait, what's she talking about? You could Google this, but this is like the Maslow chart. And I look at the hierarchy of needs. And I look at how God covers our basic needs and takes us step by step by step till he gets us to a place where we begin to feel worthy. We begin to feel that self-actualization. We begin to feel like, yes, God takes us through all the experiences and we begin to feel like we are worthy of living in this earth. And this is pretty much what faith does. It's trying to build you on that hierarchy of needs, giving you the basic things and giving you the psychological things, the physiological things, things that you desire, you need. That's pretty much what God does. I'm going to give you what you need in this season, not what you want. Because a lot of the times we mix what we need with what we want. But I need a new car, I need a new car. But the car that you have outside is perfectly fine. It's perfectly okay. It's just not what you want. I want the latest, I don't know, like the latest BMW. The one I have outside is like 10 years old. So I want something like that. And God is looking at you like, I'll give you that, but in a future season. But by the time I'm giving you that new by the time I'm giving you that new BMW or G-Wagon, or call it what you want to call it, by the time God is giving you that new car, you're not going to be rooted in it so deeply. Your mind isn't going to be rooted in it. Your idolatry is not going to be rooted in it, because you would have had faith in God the whole way that God did this. So by the time you receive it, you don't just put God on the burner and say, well, I worked hard and I'm a big babe. No, now you know that, wow, God did this for me alone. I have to show this kindness. I have to share this truth. I have to, let God's name be glorified in my life. And that's the part of us that gives testimonies in church and in places. That's the part of us that when God does something, we're so excited to share with people. Because the more you share with people, the more they get to experience God. And when they experience God, they can stand 10 toes down and say, this your God that you're serving is real. Faith is also linked to miracles. Miracles are unexplainable events that God uses to showcase his glory in our lives and all the lives around us. There are so many times unexplainable things has happened to us, and all we can ever say is it can only be God. Most times in those situations, things don't make sense. We're only left with the understanding and the evidence of what God can do does not exist. And I always say, most times, many of us, we don't even think back to the blessings that God has given us. My testimony, that was one of till tomorrow, the biggest test of my faith. And I think that was what challenged me on my journey. And that was how I really grounded and rooted myself on my journey with God. Even though I've fallen off the wagon a few times, we thank the Lord for that. But this testimony always reminds me in seasons when I'm sad, no, God exists. And I remember when I was at uni, I was doing my BSc and I'd failed. I'd failed and I was reinstated back at uni, and I was working hard. In that whole 1 year, I read less of book and read more of Bible. I was only reading a verse a day, possibly. I would, go for Bible studies, or I would do Bible studies with pastors at times. And I would really ground myself in what God can do does not what God cannot do does not exist. And that was my thought process. I was very much in that baby stage where God was spoon feeding me blessings, and I was loving it. When I finished school, it was time for us to have our results, and I was awarded a diploma instead of a degree. And I was like, hey, I should come home with diploma. To say what to my mom? To say what to my dad? I was livid. I was like, there's no way. So I called the school and I was like, is there a way for me to appeal this? Because I've worked hard and I passed these exams, but you want to give me a diploma because I failed the first few ones and then had to do resets. So therefore it's bringing my mark up, which I didn't even understand. Till today, it just didn't make no sense. But I know that God was in it to teach me something. So for the better part of 3 months, they were like, they'll get back to me, but they didn't. Submitted an appeal and waited on it. And every day my mom was like, what did they say? Hoping and believing in faith. But me at that point, I was like, God, I beg. I cannot be shamed. Okay, it's enough. Why now? I struggled to do the school thing. Now I've managed to finish. Just let me have the graduation camp so that everybody can rest in this house. That's literally what my whole process was. And I remember always just going with the flow. I didn't pressure myself in that season. All I just did was I would read a verse a day and I would give that time to God. And I would go and start my day with that verse in mind. And that was how I didn't change much. I didn't change up much. I was still very much a rebel in its own rights, but I believed solely in God. And when it was, I think it was closer to the time of graduation, which was in March, I remember thinking, oh, let me call them and find out. And they said, oh, unfortunately we don't mark appeals or look at appeals until June, so therefore you'll be graduating next year. I said, hey, my father has already booked a ticket from Nigeria to come to this UK to come for this graduation, so I don't know how we finna do it, but something has to give. And the lady was like, I'm so sorry, we should have told you that earlier. I said okay, and I carried on. That in itself made me, I was just like, God, I don't get it. I don't like how this is feeling. I need you to step in. I need you to really step in and fix this, because it doesn't make sense. And I don't know why, but there was, I think it was about February, end of February, my mom called me and was like, oh, I'm going to Blue Water, do you want to come? I said, yeah, sure, I'm not doing anything, let's go. So when we got there, she went into a shop called LK Bennett. And I remember standing outside the shop, and they had this really amazing suit. It just came off the runway, I think, or it was like the last one in store. And it was in a size 6. And at the time, I was like a size 8. So I was looking at it, I was like, there's no way I'm fitting into this. And I remember walking past it and telling my mom, if I was going to graduation, I'd probably wear something like this. And my mom was like, just go in and try it on. And I was like, what's the point? Like, what's actually the point? And she said, just try it on. So I got inside the changing room, tried it on. I was like, this suit is paying. Came out, and all the staff, the shop staff, were just looking like, wow. It was like, it was made for you. Even me, I was gassed. I was like, yeah, I think it was made for me. This is nice. My mom was like, I'm gonna buy it. And I said, you're gonna buy it for what? Because I'm not wearing this anywhere but graduation, and they've already told me that I might not be attending graduation. And she was like, no, I'm gonna buy it because you're going to graduation. And I thought to myself, hey God, if I don't go to this graduation, I'm finished. I'm finished. And we got to the till, and then they told us the price of the suit, which was ridiculous. My mom brought her credit card and was like, I'll pay for it on my credit card. I said, yay, you want to pay for credit card? You want to do this thing in faith? This is your faith that you're, whoa, I don't know. I was very much apprehensive. My mom was so sure. She was like, you know what? I'm going to bet on God. And we left the store with the suit. I was holding on to that bag for dear life. But I was just thinking in my head, God, hey, this is pressure. This is pressure. That night, I didn't sleep because I was like, what am I going to tell my mom? She's gone in faith, and this lady has already told me that, look, they're not going to mark this appeal till next year. I'll be till June, and even if then, I'll probably graduate next year. And do you know that the next day, after doing my morning devotion, going around my day-to-day, I was just on my laptop browsing, and I just saw an email that says congratulations in big capital letters. And I saw the school university thingy, and then they awarded me my degree, which I thought was going to be a third, but wasn't even a third. So there probably was a mistake somewhere. But aside from that, that really helped. In fact, that is the story that holds my faith till today. Because I think back to like all the pressure, all the worry, all the anxiety and everything. And all it just took was that one little act of faith that seemed so crazy to literally bring things in motion. It just was a catalyst into everything. It was like her purchasing that suit in faith was basically her telling God, I don't care, I'm not taking no for an answer. This graduation has to hold. And really and truly, it held. And out of every single person on that graduation that had only 2 tickets, I was allowed to have more than 2 tickets because of the issues that happened. I had all my family members there. I think there were like a good 6 and 7 of us at graduation. But what am I saying? I look back and I think to myself, God, you love me this much that despite my negligence at school, not being bothered, living my best life, doing all sorts of things, despite me also coming back to you and saying, God, if you love me, why didn't you do this for me? It didn't change your faithfulness towards me. It didn't change the amount of trust you were trying to build in me. And from that point on, I think it started opening my eyes to really like see that God is faithful. So regardless of how a situation looks, God is really faithful. Like you have to really wrap your mind around the fact that it looks like this now, but it can change at any moment. Like any moment. Like there is no time construct in heaven. We are the only bound by time on this earth. and it's just as a distraction. I always tell people time is a distraction. Time makes you feel uneasy. It makes you feel somehow. You know that when you're looking at the time and you're like, oh God, when is this going to happen? Time is a distraction. But when you take away all the elements of earthly things and you go spiritual and you give it to God, there is no time in the spiritual realm. No, there's no time. It's just God doing what God does best, executing plans at the best possible time. And most importantly, looking at you and thinking, okay, if you show me the level of faith that you have, I will execute it. If you continue to remain consistent and have faith in me while doing it, I will execute it. And I don't know who's listening to this podcast and you've been waiting to God or waiting on God for something. Maybe there's something that God is still waiting on you to do, because faith without works is dead, as James 2:20 says. And it is impossible to please God without faith, without believing in God. Hebrews 11:6. There is that area that you are thinking, God, I've been holding on to you for this thing, and I can't tell it out to people because maybe I seem crazy. I can't tell it out to people because I'm fearful that they're going to knock my faith even more because they don't see the vision. Take it back to God, please, and operate in faith. Operate in faith. Yes, operate in faith. You want to start that business? Yeah, register the business name in faith. Yeah, pretty much. You want to, go the distance? Operate in faith. Honestly, everything about my life, even up until now, I've tried to operate things in faith. Even times when it made no sense, I would operate in faith. And only then would you fully understand where God is taking you to. Not that everything that you do in faith is supposed to happen, because most times, if I've tried one bit of faith and it didn't work, I'll run away from God, which is what I used to do. Every time I put faith in something, I put faith in this and I'm like, God, I've betted on this, I've invested in this. I invested in this. I put all my money, all my inheritance into this one thing and it didn't work out and I'm angry and I'm upset. And God is showing me that I made you do that because I'm trying to grow you, but I'm also trying to open up your vision and understanding to show you that maybe this place is not where you're meant to be. And maybe you've lost this thing right now, but now you know who you are. Because everything with God is a win. A no is a win. A yes is a win. I'm so happy that you're able to tune in today, because I feel like I even spoke to myself today in today's podcast because of how I'm feeling. And I've been feeling this feeling of this past couple of weeks, feeling like, God, help me, please. How long is this going to take? But because I'm operating out of faith right now, I know that there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. Fear equals punishment. If you don't want to believe it, believe it. If you're fearful, it's punishment to your body, it's punishment to your mind. And God isn't trying to punish us. He casts out any element of fear. And our faith builds on that. Our faith goes beyond that. And knowing and having evidence of the things that God has previously done should root you and ground you in the reality of God's love. I pray that as we enter a new week, and as we end this new month in this new week coming ahead, that God will begin to realign our minds with the importance of faith. That God will show us the 9 fruits of the Spirit that He's trying to build in us in this season. That God will teach us to put all our trust and faith in Him and not our worldly things, our worldly desires. That we will have faith and ignore manifestation that the world is giving us. That we will be able to really inhabit and know the true nature of God through our growth in faith. I love you guys. I really do. And I'm enjoying this season and series. I really hope you are too. I am excited to see you next week by God's grace. And I'm so happy you tune in. Like, subscribe, share, send it out, encourage, build people's faith in this season. It's a hard season, yo. Try to build people's faith. And I trust that God is going to do that which concerns our lives accordingly. Take care. Love you. God bless.